Hey folks, welcome to the channel. In today's build, I'm going to remake the same knife I did for the 100K challenge, the Recurve Tanto. But this time, we're going to do it in copper Damascus. Let's go take a look. Well, let's talk about the construction of this new blade. So, remember this, that we did with the rolling mill. This is 170 layer Damascus, just random pattern Damascus. So we're going to take this. This is the core, and of course, a little copper in between. After cutting up these pieces and grinding them all smooth, now we're welding up the seams. Time to light up the forge. Remember, we're not forge welding. We need to keep this billet around 1800 degrees Fahrenheit maximum. It's best to take this slowly. Don't try to get too aggressive. I usually do 3 or 4 heats, just setting the weld. The billet is pretty much welded together now. Now I'm starting to draw it out. I'm using flat dies because I actually want to get some width here too. Now it's time to hit it with the aggressive drawing dies. This will put some movement in the copper, so it's not just a straight boring line down the blade. Now I'm just doing a pass with the flat dies to take out those valleys, and now we're going to move to the rolling mill. If you haven't seen my Triple T video on this rolling mill, I'll talk about it here just for a minute. The great thing about a rolling mill is it will make your stock exactly the same thickness all the way through and perfectly flat. And that, folks, is really, really useful. The other great thing about a rolling mill is it only draws out exactly in one direction. Also, it doesn't suck a lot of heat out, so you get a lot of time on the machine on each heat. And now just a quick run on the press just to take out any bow. Like all my copper Damascus, best to just cut it out of the billet. Don't try to forge this to shape. Now to roughly grind out the pattern, and you'll notice I had to change the handle just a little bit, but I like the new design a little better. Now on to the surface grinder. Here you have to constantly check where your core is and where the copper is to make sure you're not taking off too much on either side. I think the sharpening choil looks really good with this blade, so I went with it. Doing the harpoon tip on this one is really easy. You just mark your center line and just grind both sides until you reach it. It doesn't even matter what the angle is, as long as it's the same on both sides. And now the rough grind for the bevel. Here I'm using Broadbeck's Incinerator belt, which is a 36 grit belt, and pretty much I do all my pre-heat treat grinds with that. Here's the blade after the initial grind. I also did the, you saw me do the false edge. Copper came out pretty perfect, pretty centered. It looks low right now, but there's still quite a bit of meat on the blade here, so this is probably going to move up another 1/4 inch at least, maybe even a 1/2 inch up the blade. I can already see the pattern and I'm excited. It's really, really cool. Now we're going to drill some holes and then get this in the oven and do a normalization cycle. Originally I thought I was going to do a copper mosaic pin here, which is why I'm doing 3/16 holes. But later I decide I'm going to move on to Gulso bolts instead, and I'll talk about why later.
The heat treat went perfect here. Came out perfectly straight, and after tempering, it came out at right about 59.5 HRC.
Here's the blade after heat treat and temper. So it looks really good. I can already see the pattern. I'm very excited to see what it looks like at the end. It's perfectly straight, so we're ready to do some final grinding. After that, we'll be moving to handle materials. So this is some curly koa that my buddy Aaron at A-Lee Knives sent me a while ago. I'm finally getting around to using it. So thank you, Aaron. I can't imagine you don't follow Aaron's channel, so I'll put a link up in the corner, so go check him out. He's got a great channel. So it's koa, there's copper, then a piece of carbon fiber on its end, more copper and koa, and then it's up against an 1/8" carbon fiber liner. So that should look pretty cool. Hey folks, well, I was doing a bunch of hand sanding. I got this down to 400, and I was noticing this side, where you see where the copper kind of ends abruptly at the very tip here. Well, that alarmed me. It looked fine on this side, but then I decided I better etch it. And you can see that this tip, kind of where my finger is, right there, doesn't etch the same. So I think that's actually got into the side of the billet and is a piece of weld. So I think what I'm going to do is to just bring the swedge down like 1/8 of an inch, and that should take that off and preserve. Then I don't have to regrind the edge and do all that. So let's give that a shot.
Regrinding the swedge worked perfectly, and I didn't have to restart all my hand sanding. Here I'm just taking it up to 800. Now it's time to cut up the handle scales and profile them so I can get them on the knife.
So let's talk about where we're at. I decided to move away from the mosaic pins and move to the Gulso bolts just so that I could unscrew them, because I'm going to coffee etch the blade and I want the whole edge coffee etched. The copper's giving me a pain because it heats up so quick. I've actually had to CA glue this piece because it was lifting a tiny bit. So I'm down to filing these now. But I'm ready to shape the handles, so let's get on to it.
In my last build video with the 6 hunting knives, I talked about these Gulso bolts, and they're really useful for being able to detach the scales from your knife and work on them separately and reattach them later. The one downside to carbon fiber is when you sand it, that black powder gets everywhere. Time to put my maker's mark on this knife. This is just some salt water, and I have an old car battery charger, and that's what I use to electro etch my mark. The positive goes on the blade, and the negative just has a cotton ball, and that's what you're going to use on the mark.
Okay, got all of the handle scales done. They turned out really nice. I'm really happy with them. Got the blade sanded to 1000. We are ready to put it in the etch. And then we'll show you guys some glamour shots.